Good everyone. I hope you guys have an amazing day. So, if you remember in one of the episode concerning LWC, I demonstrated how you can fetch the data from an API, right? Something using this method. Um, but when you look at the code, right, you might think from an experienced developer that this code is not really great. Not really great in the sense that I have implemented um, a data fetching logic inside the main JavaScript, which is really, really a very bad practice. I mean, you might have seen similar code in production where people just chuck in the business logic inside the main JavaScript, which I personally believe is a very ugly practice to follow. I've seen the similar behavior in Apex as well when people write trigger, they chuck in the business logic there, which is and they want when they wanted to reuse the logic, they copy paste it, which is just rubbish, to be honest. So I wanted to talk about service pattern. So service pattern means you separate your business logic into a separate JavaScript class, right? Or you can call it as a service class. So we if you have followed this episode before, so you might realize that this is a logic to fetch the API and then render the API data to an HTML component, which looks okay because this is a very simple project. It's not doing much. There's not much going on behind the scene. But that being said, right, this is a very bad model to follow. So what I've done, I have removed this code and extracted some part of it and copied to a new class, which is called activity service, right? And I've added a async method inside called get activity, and I moved all my logic to fetch the data from an API inside this method. Okay. Now, what that will do is that, right, your logic will to fetch the uh, data from the API will be in a separate class, and you can reuse this JavaScript elsewhere. Okay. Now, if you don't have this, right, if you have everything here, it's very difficult to reuse the specific logic, this one, right? Now, I can reuse it elsewhere if I wanted to. So that's the advantage of separating your business logic from a URL layer. It's also called the separation of concern principle. Okay, so the way I've implemented is pretty simple. So I've imported this, right, because it's just a part of the same project. And then under constructor, I have um, created an instance of this class because this is a class, right? Activity service is a class. So I've created an instance of a class. And then under get activity, I've just used this one, await, and pretty much everything is the same except that, the fetching logic I moved to a separate service class. So it might look very simple, but trust me, I have seen code where people have cluttered the JavaScript code, into the same LWC page. And what surprised me that some of them even said they worked on Angular React before, or even a different JavaScript framework, and they end up in writing this kind of code, which really surprised me, and make me wonder, have they really worked on those projects before? Right? Because I don't have, like 10 to 15 years experience in JavaScript because I usually worked on C Sharp. And yes, I've done ASP.NET, ASP.NET Core. I've done JavaScript there, even done React projects. But the common thing, to know, right, in every project I've worked, we have a process in place, or you can say coding standard, where you should not be cluttering your main UI layer with your business logic. It should be separate, right? It should be separate class or or separate file, whatever. So yeah, that's all I wanted to cover in this episode, right? So uh, that being said, if you have seen in your existing project a cluttered based JavaScript file, if you have time to refactor, I would highly encourage you to refactor it. I mean, it's gonna add so much of value going forward when you wanted to add more functionality, when you wanted to test a component individually. It will definitely add a lot of value to your project. And also, it will make sure that, more bugs won't creep in when you wanted to add extra functionality. So, yeah, that being said, that's all I wanted to cover. You guys have an amazing Monday. Adios.